So let's talk a little bit about some of the training considerations that I am going to be implementing over the course of 2021 so that I can achieve some of the goals that I have for races. How's it going, runners? My name is Justin Thompson. I'm your average running PT, and I help the average runner achieve their own personal elite status. If that's something you guys are into, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you know when the next video comes out. So if you didn't see my previous video, I talked about some of my racing goals for 2021. Now, go ahead and check that video out if you want to know kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of racing times and things like that for a 1 mile, 5K, and a half marathon. So make sure you check that video out. Now, this video is going to be all about what am I actually going to do in the training to help me accomplish those particular goals. So these are kind of the training considerations for 2021 that I really want to try to implement that will help me to achieve those goals for 2021. So I'm just going to jump right into this and talk a little bit about some of the general considerations. So first of all, mileage. So I talked last year about how I hit 1,000 miles for the first time in a year. And that was impressive for me. I was happy about that, but now I'm ready to bump that up even more, and I want to increase that total mileage by about 50% this year. So I want to go from 1,000 miles to 1,500 miles in 2021. So that is the goal for mileage in 2021. Now, how am I actually going to kind of progress myself and get there? Well, one of the things that I noticed as I looked back on 2021 was that I didn't have really well-defined training blocks. It was just kind of running and running and running, working on math level running, low heart rate running, just to build that aerobic capacity. And I think I was successful in doing that, but I do still tend to lose a little bit of motivation whenever I don't have something that I'm looking towards. So if I don't have an end goal, if I don't have some specific target that I'm shooting for, I still need that little bit of motivation. So I'm going to be kind of setting my training blocks in more well-defined ways, and hopefully those training blocks will be somewhere in the range of 12 to 14 weeks. That might stretch out a little bit longer as I enter into a half marathon training block, but for training blocks that are like training for a hard 1 mile race or a hard 5K race, I don't need to extend that training block out super far, because those training blocks will be building on each other. The aerobic base will continue to be there. I just need to better define my speed sessions and when that happens in the course of the training block. So I need to do a much better job at that. 12 to 14 week training blocks is when I kind of the sweet spot I want to be at. If I do a half marathon training block, maybe that'll stretch out to about 16 weeks. But I want to make sure that those are much more well defined so that I don't get kind of bored with what I'm doing. I gotta have that goal that I'm looking towards. Now, as I start my first training block, what are the first 4 weeks of this training block going to look like? Because I did just take 2 weeks completely off. So if I'm taking 2 weeks off, that means I've lost a little bit of fitness. I still have a pretty good base there, but I want to slowly build myself back up so that I don't shock the system, so that I don't create some sort of overuse injury in my connective tissue. And so the point of building up slowly over the next 4 weeks is to help my connective tissue kind of reintegrate and get itself going again, and get myself used to the routine of running again. So the plan is for each week over the next 4 weeks to increase by 5 miles per week. Now, of course, that's not coherent with the 10% rule. However, I still have fitness. I still have a base, even though I took those 2 weeks off. I didn't lose everything. So I just need to slowly let my connective tissue kind of regain its strength again. And so the plan is start with 15 miles in week 1, 20 miles in week 2, 25, and then 30 miles in week 4. At that point, I will be back to kind of where I was mileage-wise in terms of, how much am I doing per week. I was running somewhere around 30 miles a week towards the end of the year. Kind of dropped down a little bit to taper for 5Ks and things like that, but I got to a point where I was doing about 30 miles a week. So the plan is to bump it up to about 30 miles a week over those first 4 weeks, and then from there I can start to reintroduce a little bit of speed work and a little bit of other kind of workouts that are not just slowly building back up again. So then let's talk about some of those faster workouts that will start at around week 5, and I want to start to introduce a little bit more of that tempo pace work or threshold pace work earlier in the training block. So let's say I hit week number 5 of a 14-week training block. At that point I will have 10 weeks left of a training block. I want to start doing tempo runs at that time, and then kind of continue to work that over a 6-week or 4 or 6 week period, and then from there, as I get closer to race time, then I'll start to hone in on those specific workouts that need to be done in order to hit those goal times, hit those goal paces for the race that I am training for. Okay? So start those tempo runs a little bit earlier in those workouts, rather than just spending week after week after week just doing low heart rate and math paced running. I think part of that's going to be because I'm better defining my training blocks, but also I need to start doing a little bit more speed stuff to kind of get myself out of a rut of just running at the same pace all the time. Now, in 2021, I also want to start to incorporate a little bit more strength training. I did that some in 2019, didn't do much at all in 2020, and I ended up actually losing about 10 pounds of, whether it was fat or muscle, it doesn't really matter. I lost about 10 pounds. I went from 175 pounds down to 165, which might sound like a good thing for a runner, but for me, I'm not just a runner, I'm an athlete, and I want to be able to maintain some level of muscle mass. So I do want to continue doing some strength training. And my wife likes when I have a little bit of extra muscle on me as well. So I want to make sure that happy wife, happy life, right? So, but I also want to make sure that connective tissue strength is staying strong. I maintain a good amount of power, which the strength training is going to help me be able to do. And then I also just want to be able to prevent injury, and just being stronger helps me to do that. So I want to make sure that I don't get injured over the course of 2021 while I'm trying to be stick to these specific kind of training blocks. I have to make sure that I'm strong enough to be able to do so. So that might look like free weight training, that might look like resistance band training, stuff like that, to make sure that connective tissue stays strong, muscles are staying strong, I'm shoring up those imbalances that may be there so that I don't end up with some sort of weird overuse injury in 2021. Now in 2020, I did talk a little bit about plyometrics, however, I was not very good at actually doing them. So that is something that I also want to make sure that I am incorporating, especially towards the end of a training block, during those speed session times where I'm kind of getting, working on that power, working on that spring that's going to give me that extra speed, that's going to get me to those times that I want, that sub 19 5K, that 18:30 5K that I want to achieve, that sub 5:10 or even 5 minute 1 mile. I just want to make sure that that's something that doesn't just get lost, because I got to maintain that spring, because the spring is something that, it's free energy. And if you can train your body to use that free energy well, then you can just be a lot faster because you're using less of your energy, obviously. So plyometrics, definitely something I want to start to integrate into my training a little bit more and a little bit more consistently. And along with plyometrics comes things like agility drills. And, I've always been an athlete. I was a soccer player in college, so I've always done things like agility drills and stuff like that that just made me a little bit more of a well-rounded athlete. I was never just a great, straight ahead runner, but those agility drills, that gave me this quickness, that kind of poppiness, and it worked a lot of extra muscles that don't get worked when you're just running straight ahead. So agility drills to provide some of that lateral stability, that lateral strength and quickness that will translate into hopefully faster straight ahead running as well. Now, some of the more specific training considerations for specific races. For the 5K, I need to make sure that I'm doing specific like track repeats. And so that's going to be quarter-mile repeats and 800-meter repeats. Those were the two things that really, I feel like, made me really fast when I was in high school, was quarter-mile and half-mile repeats. So I need to make sure that as I move toward the end of that 5K training block, that I'm really starting to progress in those kind of speed sessions, and not just kind of going willy-nilly into whatever I might be doing with the team for that week. But I need to be a little bit more specific, I think, in what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish for that 5K. So for the 5K, 400-meter and 800-meter repeats. Now, as I move into a 1-mile training block, obviously I need to be running faster than just a 5K. So I'm going to be training 400-meter repeats and 200-meter repeats. And then I might just be working a lot more on strides as well to just get a lot more of that turnover. So that'll be towards the end of that 1-mile training block, whenever that is. I still don't know exactly when all these races are going to occur. So, and then finally for the half marathon, some of those really key workouts that I think I need to be hitting are just half marathon race pace workouts, whether that's 1-mile repeats or 2-mile repeats or 10-minute repeats or 12-minute repeats, something along those lines where I'm dialing in that half marathon pace, and just making sure that I stick to it and not get too excited and overeager to try and pump those out at a faster pace than what I actually want to do, because if I get used to a faster pace, then of course I'm going to start the race too fast and then probably blow up in the race. So I really need to work on dialing in those race paces for that half marathon, again, whenever that happens. So that's it. Those are my 2021 training considerations for the year. Just trying to kind of give myself a little bit more structure to my training than 2020, because 2020 was all about building my base, and I did a lot of slow, easy running, which obviously I still want to do. About 80% of my running or more still needs to be slow and easy, but I need to structure the training blocks much more effectively. I think that's going to be the key here, is just making sure that I have a lot better structure to my training blocks, and that I have an actual plan rather than just go out and run nice and easy and see how it goes. So that's it. 2021 is going to be a good year. I'm excited for it. I hope you guys are going to be with me on the journey, and I hope that I can do a little bit more maybe GoPro running, maybe during some races or things like that, so that you guys can see real time, or not real time, but in the event, what's going on. So that's it for today. Head on out there, seek your elite. God bless, and I will see you next time.